Oh, hi. It's Monday morning. So, um, let's have some relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons. Why not? What else is there to do on a Monday morning other than relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons? I don't have anything else. Well, I do have other things I could be doing instead of this. I don't want to lie about that. There are some things I could be doing instead, but this is my unpaid internship, and so here it is. And what I'm doing today is continuing to work on this infected bulette. Last week I got the base coat on the bottom and the red veining done because that's the infection climbing up into it. I got the base coat on the armor plating, which is not infected because it's, armor plating. And now I'm going to be painting all these spiky outgrowths, kind of a bright yellow, and then putting little green stripy stuff on them because that's the way we're painting fungus monsters like this one. So you have the beige with the red, and then the green, the yellow with the green, and then the whole thing gets a light coating of green wash. And then the base, on this one, I had the base have mycelium growing up into them, and that turned out kind of cool. I might try to do the same thing here. I'm not sure I'll do white on brown, though. I might do, I don't know. I don't know what I'll do. I'm a fairly long way away from getting to that point. So what needs to be done here next is painting the yellow spikes, and then a mouth line, dark red line here for the mouth. There's kind of a gap between the beige and the khaki, and then I'm going to do some khaki touching up because I'll probably get yellow on spots where I don't want it, and I might get red on spots where I don't want it. So I'm going to painting yellow, and then khaki touch up, and then green swirly things, veiny stuff. And then I'm going to put the green wash on, and then I'm going to put a brown wash on the khaki because this is my color chart here. These are the options we had for the carapace, and this is the one we chose with that wash. So it's going to turn mostly brownish when the time comes. And then it's got these open sores, where the flush has been eating away, and those are going to be painted. I believe the latest is black with red ooze. There's a chance they could be red with black ooze, but at the moment it's black with red ooze. At least that's my understanding. The yellow is probably going to take multiple coats. It doesn't cover that well. It just doesn't. And so, especially here where I got the khaki up on the spiky parts. So I'm going to, start painting yellow eventually here and see how that goes. I'm going to use I think I'm going to use this thing. It's called lemon yellow. Maybe that. Maybe I'll just use, I wonder if this is any good anymore. Just yellow. Yeah, it's been sitting around for a while, so it's the pigment and the solvent have separated pretty significantly. I'm not sure how much is left. It looks like a half a jar. I'm going to try this first. We'll see. See if there's enough in here and if it stirs up. Sometimes when the paints haven't been used for a while. Thanks for the follow. Hi. I appreciate it. Painting a monster, a bulette that will probably show up almost certainly show up in our Dungeons and Dragons show, our Dice and Dungeons and Dragons show. And the bulettes are bad in and of themselves. They're really nasty, dangerous creatures. But this one has been further fungus infected, which I don't know, will make it either scarier or it will ask us to help it, and then we'll help it and it'll become an ally. I'm kind of hoping that it turns out to be a friendly bulette once we cure it of its disease. Although I'm not going to hold my breath. Usually our DM doesn't let that happen. This yellow, I'm going to see if this yellow is any good. I'm talking in plurals again. Like, let's do that. I suppose, if you're watching the stream, then the plural can make sense, because then you're part of the people who are watching. And then let's make sense. Remember using yellow very much, but we must have, because there isn't that much of it left in the jar. Using a small brush because I have to paint. I have to get into all sorts of little areas and spots that are hard to reach. And also try not to get it all over the khaki or the undercoat of the color underneath it. I warned everybody on Friday that painting these spikes is going to end up taking forever. Just is. It's going to be very slow, because sometimes they're hard to reach. Surface area is fairly large. It's really easy for me to miss spots and have to go back. I have to hold it by hand. This is a dangerous thing. It would be nice if I could put it on a holder. It's way too heavy for the things I've got, so I'm holding it in my hand. The downside of holding it in my hand is that it could be dropped, in which case it would break, and then that would be bad. I should put my head magnifiers on, because it's this paint is working okay. I have to clean my brush periodically. It's going to get viscous and gummy. But otherwise, and it's covering pretty well. Some yellows, I think I was saying that earlier, some yellows don't cover very well. Yellows, whites, some of the reds are more translucent than opaque. And here, let's start out by having places that are hard to reach. And then it takes 2, sometimes 3 coats to get them even. So this is a thing I don't want to drop, because these spikes are really pretty fragile. The stuff this is made out of, look, I got a spot there already where I bumped it with the brush. That's why I didn't do the washing on the carapace yet, because I knew things like that were going to happen. I got a spot there, if you can see it. But yeah. Spot that's not supposed to be yellow. Already this brush is gumming up, right? Nice. This bulettes are burrowing creatures. To remember to hold it by the base. It's easy when I'm twisting it around to grab it by one of these spikes and then snap it off. And then it's not an impossible situation. If I were to snap one off, I can glue it back on, but I would prefer not to have to make repairs. I would prefer to just get on with this. That's my preference anyway. Maybe I'll get my way or not. The bulettes are burrowing creatures. Somehow or other, they are able, despite their size and their lack of obvious lack of digging claws. They're not like a mole. You can see they have just sort of blunt claws. They're supposed to be able to like move rapidly underground. Obviously, if this were in our physical world, that would be a very difficult thing for them to be doing. But in the D&D world, that's what they do. They move rapidly underground. They kind of destroy everything they come in contact with, eat whatever they want. They're not intelligent creatures, and so that makes them, if they're rage filled or something for some reason, like they missed lunch or whatever, then they become even more dangerous. I'm just gonna clean the brush here a little bit. So this particular bulette apparently got itself somehow or other into a fungus infected cave. Just a fungus infected something. So this is, yeah. And now it's got these veiny stuff and spikes growing out of it, and sort of mushroomy things. So I get to fairly carefully anyway, hand paint here so that it can show up on our Dungeons and Dragons show. Probably in pain, enraged, certainly just unhappy as all get out. And I'm guessing is not going to be a friendly greeting. It's not going to be like, hey there, midnight brunch. How you doing? Welcome to this infected cave. Hope you like it better than I do. I mean, not that bulettes can talk, although our bard can cast a speak with animals spell. Maybe that would work. I don't know. But given its size and strength and probably disturbed emotional state, it might be worth a try. I mean, who knows? It might. dipping the brush down into the jar. The paint is way down at the bottom here, and I just pushed it in way too far. Now my brush is messy. Yuck. After I'm done with this mushroomy thing, I'm going to wash it off. Anyway, it's this isn't going to show up on the show for a while. We record them and then play them back in the future. So there's like this time distortion thing going on, you know. So they stream with a live chat. They are previously recorded. So this bulette will probably show up sometime, I don't know, maybe end of January, maybe. I'm just sort of guessing. I really have no idea. So it'll be sometime early 2025. It's weird to say 2025. Like, that's someone who vividly remembers Y2K, you know, and watching television, and the new year hit like in Japan and China first because of where the international date line was, you know, and there was all this hype about computers would crash because they had 2-digit dates instead of 4-digit dates. Remember that? Computers were programmed with only the last 2 digits of the year. And so when you got to 2000, the computer would think it was 1900 or 1901 and then get all confused. And, you know, instead of everybody getting a year older, they would all get like a century younger. I got another spot. Yeah, there's all sorts of little yellow spots that need to be touched up with the khaki. Yep. So, yeah. So we all sat around in the living room. We were watching, and we weren't really afraid, but we were still like, yeah, maybe something will happen. I don't know. We've been talking about this for 3 years now, and civilization as we know it will end at New Year's Eve on 2000 because all the computers will become confused. But then they showed the celebration in, I think it was Tokyo, maybe Tokyo, maybe Beijing. I can't remember. It was somewhere there where they were many hours ahead of us, and nothing happened. So we were there was this combined sense of relief and disappointment. Like, we've been hearing about this and nothing, not even in China or Japan. Nothing happened. Well, I mean, things are happening. It wasn't like all of a sudden it went to nothing. That would have been weird. But there was no, I'm sticking my finger in it. Great. That kind of painting. Right. See, yellow. That came from the edge of this mushroomy thing here. Okay, well, I've got a couple of spots where I got the yellow onto the khaki, and those were my most typical little oopses. Hi, thanks for joining in. I appreciate it. I am making a bulette for a Dungeons and Dragons show. And this, just to give you a sense of perspective, this is to scale. This is a dwarf, so it's a little smaller than a human. But as you can see, this is a large beast, and this large beast is infected with a fungus, so that its color scheme is kind of like this, which is a fungus monster that appeared in our show some time ago. And I'm painting the yellow parts now. Well, this was a much lighter yellow I did on this one. This is a darker yellow, but it shows up. It'll show up pretty well. So once all these yellow spikes are yellowed, once all these spikes are made yellow, I'm going to then paint little green stripy things all over them. And then I'm going to touch up the khaki in the spots that I like, that little spot there where I bumped it with the brush. There will be more of them probably, where I got the yellow too far down onto the surface of the beast. Okay, it's dry at least. At least I'm not putting yellow splotches. That's happened to me in the past. Is I managed to touch something with my little finger there that was wet paint, and I didn't know it. I just kept touching it in other places, and I had the wrong colored spots everywhere. It just made a mess. Okay, I slipped again. What happened there was that I'm holding a model here, and it's kind of awkward. And I don't know if you saw it, but it moved just a little bit, and the brush bumped. This is a raised spot, so this needs to be painted yellow. This is not an accidental spot. This is an intentional spot. Good, yeah. So these beasts move underground. Trying to get it here. I bumped it on the edge. Now I've got little yellow spots I hope I catch them all later when I do the touching up. I mean, they're pretty obviously the wrong color. But I hope I rotate the work correctly so that I can make them not yellow later on. The mushroomy thing. This is kind of cool. Kind of a cool looking fungus outgrowth. So this painting show, I know your first time chat. I don't know if you've been watching or listening to this before. It started out as what I'm doing now, which is painting minifigs and sometimes dungeon tiles for our show. What's happened over time is that sometimes I don't have these. Like, we don't need them for the show. So I work on various and sundry models. And I did a Renwall cutaway submarine. It's a real vintage model. I mean, an authentically vintage model from the 60s, the mid 60s. I bought those online and I built that. That took a while because it shows the interior detail of the submarine, and there were a lot of little bits that needed to be painted. And then I was working on an Apollo, and that's nearly done. I have skipped away from it for the time being because I need to fabricate an instrument panel so that it looks better than just the plain old model would by itself. And now I'm working on a Savoia S21. I'm working on a model of Porco Rosso's plane. And that's what I've been doing until last week when we had these models printed. There were four dwarves that I finished last week, and then there's this beast, the infected bulette. Yeah, see there, I went a little too far with the yellow, so there's another spot, a little bitty spot that needs to be touched up. I'm going to do the khaki touch up first. I'm going to paint. No. That's why I talk about this out loud to myself in terms of the order in which things are to be done. I think I'm going to paint. I am going to paint the green detail on the yellow spiky things first before doing the khaki touch up. And the reason for that is the same reason as I do the khaki touch up after the yellow, which is because I bump the brush in spots. Oh, cool. Did you get a rosin printer or a PLA printer? We started with PLA printers. That's how we did our dungeon tiles, and then this is done on a rosin printer. You're gonna make minifigs, little minifigures, and then paint those. Oh, cool. Hi, Ole. Thanks for dropping in today. Continuing to work on the bulette here. Inventureology just bought a rosin printer. Those you need to make sure. Yep, there you go. Oh, follow. Hi. People have started talking about printers. Just need to make sure you work in a well ventilated area. That's the safety tip du jour. That a little bit of breathing that stuff isn't bad, but a lot of breathing that stuff is not really good for you. So congratulations. You'll be making minifigs. Really nice. You'd print them out. You're gonna do the painters too then? The painting? Ah, okay. Mm-hmm. is you should watch their stream if you haven't already. Really, really good at painting these kinds of things and doing them quickly, and can do them without needing a head magnifier usually. The major success of the day so far, probably ruin it now by saying it, is that I haven't dropped this and broken anything. Ooh, you're gonna do? Oh, yeah, that's really good. The clear rosin, the invisible. Like in my character can actually turn invisible for one turn, and we haven't done that yet, but we've talked about it. Sometimes you just talk about things for a long time before doing them. But we've talked about making clear rosin minifigs of those of us in our group who can turn invisible. That really makes the game better, you know, to have like minifigs of your characters and maybe even the mobs that you run into. That's almost but not quite good. Yes, I would really recommend that. There, if you're like I'm working on a budget here, and so I don't have a whole lot of fancy things, but this I use this a lot because I'm not I'm really not good at seeing things anymore. My eyesight's pretty bad. I can't see anything more than about 18 inches away, and I can see things up close fairly well. But this is a really, I'm not pushing any particular brand or anything, but having one of these that you can just put on with the magnifying lenses, and it comes with this little light, and that light is a handy thing to have. So I would actually recommend that when you're painting a mini, even if it's not like immensely detailed. Yeah, I've got one of those too. The helping hands, it's called, with it all sorts of little alligator clips with a magnifying glass, and I've used that too. But this is just way easier to use, at least for me. But the other thing I'd recommend is, they're coming off the rosin printer, and they come off pretty cleanly. But I'd consider investing in a set of needle files if you don't have them already, because those are really handy when it comes to doing a final cleanup. Okay. Trying to remember whether these were supposed to be black with red ooze or red with black ooze. But now it's just up to me. Okay. Which means I'll get it wrong. So whatever I do will be wrong. That's usually the way it goes. But yeah, a head magnifier is, I find, really a useful thing when it comes to painting minis or other models, like instrument panels and rivet heads, all sorts of little tiny detail that show up on ship and airplane models and things. I don't know how much this one cost. It was a gift. It's like one of the members of Dyson Dungeons says, "I'm really tired of you complaining about not being able to see what you're doing. So put these on and quit whining." It wasn't quite like that. That wasn't really fair, but it was kind of close to that. It was pretty clear that I was struggling with seeing things up close. And so that this was a gift, and it was really welcome. Not knowing, oh, I know. Um, this is another thing. Sometimes if you're not really sure how something is going to look, like what we're talking about in chat here are these open sores that have been printed onto the model. Okay. Enforcer, it's going pretty well. And we got some folks here in chat, including someone who just got a rosin printer, is going to be producing their own minifigs for the D&D game. And then having, I'm sure, relaxing painting sessions of their own. So Enforcer, 2 questions. Did you get around to playing? Did you get around to playing this weekend? You were talking about maybe getting your game going again. Did that happen? I'm hoping it did. So I was saying that not knowing what would look better, whether the open wounds would be black inside with red ooze coming out of them, whether they would look better red with black ooze coming out of them, is to do a test. And in this case, I could, since I can repaint them, it's possible to paint over them again, is what I might do is do one of each and see what the preference is. So at some point, I'll get around to that. Like I expected, this is going kind of slowly because just that well. Oh my! You're getting the gigantic army painter set. That's pretty ambitious. I think you'll find that was a good choice though, because then you'll have whatever color you need. We started buying paints mainly for our dungeon tiles, and so we were going through a lot of paint because they're fairly, there's a lot of surface area. So we were buying the big bottles of Tamiya. They have a nice selection of blues and grays, and then the hose, because it was just, we got what we could get. It's pretty fun. Thank you. Oh, thanks for the follow. Thank you for that. That's really appreciated. Tell everybody you know, and complete strangers too. Just go up to people, say, I don't know you, but what you need to do to make your life complete is watch Dyson Dungeons, either the D&D show or the relaxing painting, either one or both, ideally both. You need to watch those and become a follower and go on YouTube and become a subscriber. It's my unabashed plug du jour. Thank you for the follow. So if I'm not talking about what I'm painting or just chatting with you, what I'm going to be doing is continuing my railing against the Mickey Mouse Club. I used to watch that on I sat on my grandmother's couch, you know, as we, back in the day. Yes, it did. Thank you. And it all looks pretty good. I like so the two-handed fighting really makes sense. So the magic from the runes, is that something that your character just, has to create on their own? Or do they find runes, magical runes in various places and learn that way? Like from a school of magic or something. For those of you who are just meeting Enforcer for the first time, yeah, I try to be calmer. I'm very calm even when I'm ranting about Mickey Mouse Club, or the death of the vacuum tube industry, or better yet, one of my best ones was talking about the death of the television antenna industry. Now, I remember that whole transition and how silent we all were as an entire industry just disappeared from the planet. But if you haven't met Enforcer before, join them in chat, because they're really creative in terms of character creation. They're putting one together now for hopefully a D&D campaign that's going to be starting soon. They said that their Enforcer is Ophala is sort of, if whoever joins in. But they're trying to get their D&D campaign back together again after a disruption. And they're really good at character development. It's a lot of fun to listen in on, or actually read, because I'm not listening, it's in text. Listen in on the characters they're developing. This is okay. I guess it's going okay yet. So our D&D campaign, our D&D show is on a podcast, and that's it's PG rated. Let's say that our target audience, we joke about this, but it's not really a joke, is those under 7 and those over 70. That's not true. Our target audience is everybody, without discrimination. We want everybody to join in on Dice and Dungeons campaign, but it's available as a podcast as well as on YouTube. And, like any D&D campaign, it sometimes it's fun and funny and relaxed, and sometimes we get into combat and I almost die. Personally, but my character, or we have a massive victory. That's always That's always the best, is when we have a great victory over our adversaries. I gift. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well today. I let's just say way better than last week Wednesday. I don't know if anybody here, you should catch last week Wednesday's stream on YouTube. It was I think I was asked, said I had to admit that I just barely survived it. I was really, really tired. I was dropping things and knocking things over. I was painting these four dwarf figures, the Ulstein Grotfelds, who show up in our show, and I knocked all of them over at one time, along with a couple of bottles of paint. Fortunately, the bottles are closed. Yeah, it was that way. I couldn't find things. It was knocking things over. It was a classic. It was a classic episode of Oops. Still don't have my Oops button though. DM's just been too busy doing other things to get around to making my Oops button, which might be just as well, because the Stream Deck is way over there. I have to reach over whatever I'm working on in order to reach the Stream Deck. And if I were to push the Oops button, odds are really high that I would bang into something and knock something over. So I'd have to have like a meta Oops. I'd have to have a Oops about the Oopsing. But there's usually enough of them during a stream where you'll hear me go, really pretty good at making those kind of groany noises. These things are all yellow, and you can see them more clearly now that they're yellow. Then I'm going to paint on the green, the green detailing. And then I think I might paint the mouth stripe first, just to give this yellow paint a little more time to dry before I try to paint over it. These acrylics, they're water soluble. They're easy to clean up. They dry pretty quickly, sometimes almost too quickly. Can't dawdle too much. Yeah, we'll get the rights. We'll pay for the rights to that, so that can play when I hit the Oops button. You can go to patreon.com/Dyson Dungeons and become a hyper patron, and we'll use your contribution to purchase the rights to Oops. I think I'm not missing any of them. There's just, there's like a half a dozen spots, just enough to be really annoying, where I got the yellow paint on the khaki. Uh, this is a little darker yellow than I used before. I used more of a lighter yellow, but I'm glad I picked this one because it covers pretty well. The other yellow, the lighter yellow, which would have been brighter on camera, um, would have required two coats, and you can tell by how long this is taking that it would have been forever before I finish this. This way, there's a chance I can sometime yet in everybody's lifetime. Thanks for dropping in, Ole. I think being a butler is, why not? This is a dragon. That's a butler. That's especially good. There's things were going on in chat, but getting back to that. So is that the? I am not always remembering which character is going when. Is this the character that you're going to be playing in the game that your DM is developing now? Do you know what the other players are going to do? Buzzing in the kitchen. Kitchen buzzes. We have kitchen buzzes. Actually, the buzzing sounds can sometimes be really hard to locate because they kind of bounce around really well. I know I've run into that where there's been something buzzing and I end up, listening to it and following it to a place where it was just echoing. Is it a loud, annoying buzzing, or just kind of a soft, like a bee stuck in the window buzzing? Yeah, of course it would be. They they'll like bump up against a window. Those are very annoying. The kind that they go up to a window and they just kind of bounce against it. And they never give up. They just keep bouncing against it. They're buzzing away, and of course trying to like catch it or capture it or slap it or whatever. Is very hard to do. Are you allergic to bees? Probably not. Bees, I don't know. Bees don't usually come in the house. It's probably some sort of fly. I'm just guessing. I don't know. I'm not there. I don't hear it. But when we have a buzzing insect banging against a window, like 98 times out of 100, it's a fly. They seem to be like the most persistent and annoying insects when it comes to that sort of thing. Oddly enough, this mushroom is one of the more difficult things. Dragonflies are really cool. So they're Oh yeah. Okay. We are just entering frost season where I am here. I think we've had one very light frost, but it's nice. It's nice when bug season is over. We have a screened porch, and that's installed because of mosquitoes. Okay. Just a That's kind of interesting. I know people. I think I've heard that some mechanics use a real stethoscope. Where there's something clicking on the inside of the engine. You'd think with an engine, with all the loud noise that you get from a car, that wouldn't work. But it's actually a technique, I guess, that's used. Oh, yeah, the mosquitoes. We had Our mosquito season wasn't too horrible this year because it was kind of dry. Um, I mean, there are some years. There was one year when we first moved where we are that it was the spring mosquitoes, ones that great. I can't get there from here. It came out. Guess it was really early summer. It was the big, just like the first week of June, and they weren't evening mosquitoes either. They didn't care what time of day it was. Just nasty that way. So the car was parked probably like 10 feet from the house. And I would sprint out. I can't do that anymore, but I could then. I would run out as fast as I could, open the car door, jump in, and close the car door. Mosquitoes were so thick and so aggressive. And this was like in the morning. The sun had been up for, and there would be like 9 or 10 mosquitoes in the car just from that quick sprint from the house to the car. That was the worst they'd ever been. They never got that bad again, which I'm happy about. Oh, Crowley is a human. But hair color. There are so many choices of hair color. Um, Boy, I don't know what to say. Gray. There you go. No, Butler is this, if it's sort of an English, yeah, you talk maybe about having like an English accent. You can always go with the old redhead. Oh, well, giant red mustache. I mean, not like red, but like red hair, brownish red hair, red. That's just my vote. Ginger. That's sort of, what do they call it? A ginger color. Okay, I think I've got all the yellow spots yellowed. I'm just going to go around one more time and look. I'm not going to run my finger. Oh, but I don't have to be perfect because I'm going to be putting green detailing on them. But there they go. Let's see now. Yeah, Hercule Poirot mustache. I'm not going to try to say that again. So at this point, with the base coat on it, it looks pretty, pretty dull. I think the wash on the carapace is going to make a huge difference because it's going to make it look brown, kind of brownish. Some of the yellow paint is dry, but not all of it, especially the part I just did back here. So I'm going to wait a bit before I start doing the green. This is the green color here I'll be using. I'm going to try to paint the mouth line now. And I want to use the scarlet red, the red black, which is like one of the few colors I haven't pulled out and messed up here. Butler speak? I don't know. I think butlers always have to speak in a very calm yet firm kind of voice. That you have to be like subservient, but not at the same time, I think. I don't know. I've never had a butler. Just can't imagine, having one. And you have to use, every once in a while, you have to use words that are way bigger words than necessary. Like if 2 syllables would do, try to come up with a 4-syllable word. You have to do that every now and then. Yeah, Batman had a butler. But yeah, they almost always have sort of a slight pseudo-English accent, no matter what. It seems to be a thing that you have to have if you're a butler. I had a whole mug of coffee and I just forgot to. And I really need some now here. This is our official, I can show that to you, Dice and Dungeons mug. It's our logo imprinted on the mug. Oh. Yeah, I'm going to do this without the head magnifier. So is Major, I don't know that. Is Major Armstrong a butler? Like a former military person who's now a butler? Or does Major Armstrong have a butler? Okay, I'm going to try to paint this really thin mouth line here. And if I get the paint on a surface where I don't want it, I'm going to try to get it onto the khaki and not the beige. Ah, okay. I have to admit I have not kept up with anime from a long, long time. Just Haven't been watching it. I'm going quiet here because I'm trying to do this in this sort of thin line. Okay. That sounds pretty fun. Full Metal Alchemist. I'm going to have to look away from chat for just a bit here while I'm doing this because it's just not going well. I'm kind of struggling right now with this line. I'm not really struggling. I'm just saying that it's not going that well. And part of it is that I should have put my head magnifiers on and I didn't. So I'm going to look up every now and then, but my eyes are focused at this point, sort of here. What I'm trying to say is that if I look up at chat, I'm not going to be able to read it because my eyes are focused here and not there. So if you see me kind of looking up and squinting and going, I'm not sure what you're saying, it's because of my eyes not working. Oh, well, see, when a butler is on the job, then you're deferential to your boss. Okay. But when you're not on the job, then you don't have to be deferential. But your tone and manner of speaking should be the same. Well, that brush slipped, but it slipped in a way where it's actually okay. So I would think what a butler should do is put on airs. That's my advice. Is when you're with the other people, you always address them very formally, very politely, but you would address them as Mr. somebody. You would never call anybody by their first name. Hello, Mr. Smith or Smythe. I say, I see we're about to enter a dangerous situation. I would recommend a moderate level of caution at this point. Perhaps, perhaps one of you chaps could attempt to detect whether there are any traps. I say. I'm not good at that, but that's how I would imagine a butler might talk to the rest of the party. Tea, anyone? Oh, Miss or Madam, that would depend on the age of the person to whom you're speaking. Um, I would use Miss only until somebody was like maybe 13 or 14, 13 or so, and after that I'd go to Madam. Miss would be like more childlike almost. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but that's how I would think it would work. Is that you wouldn't use Miss much past the age of maybe 13. You know, when a young teen is starting to feel more adultish and would like to be taken seriously, definitely go with Madam so as not to offend. Okay, well, it's a little bit ragged, but it'll do. It's not too bad. Instead of human, I'm not. I might have missed something there. But a butler would always be exceptionally polite, like maybe even obsequiously, not obsequiously. That's the wrong word. You would use a word like that, though. I didn't have a chance to see that. No, but I have the link. I have it written down. And I wanted to make sure I shared it with the rest of the party too, because it sounds really really clever. I think I'm going to keep this brush out for the green stuff because the green highlights are real tiny. Oh, I see. Addressing a female elf. Well, it would definitely be Madam. There'd be a little bow. You know, a butler would make before somebody would make a little bow, but not like a deep bow, not like a I'm subservient bow, but a I'm being very polite bow. Okay. Something came through with a weather front yesterday. Actually, it was Saturday night. It started coming through Saturday night and just, eyes get all puffy. They're watering again today. It's not as bad as yesterday. Yesterday was really bad. I'm actually feeling kind of sick. Um, the impression I have, I sound robotic. Is there something wrong with the microphone? If there is, I can't do anything about it. Um, I'll have to ask somebody. I'll have to ask the DM to listen to the podcast. That's really odd. I wonder if the connection's loose, or maybe it's just because it's an old leftover microphone from something else. Thanks for mentioning that. I'll have to have them look into it and see what that might be. Yeah, what I remember my impression was of if one was wealthy back then, that one spent like all that one did all day long was change clothes and eat. There was always like dressing for dinner. It's like, what, you weren't dressed before? Of course, that was a silly thing to say. Of course, they were dressed, but you had to have different clothes for dinner and or going out to a show or heading over to the club. Why that was, but that seemed to be the only thing that people did then. I mean, if they were wealthy and they had servants, is they were always changing clothes or eating. But yeah, there was tea time. What was tea time was like, it's like I missed an entire spot down here. Tea time was what, like 3? I think it was like 3 in the afternoon. We went on vacation once to a place that had high tea. It was tea. It wasn't even very good tea, really. Uh, I hope I don't offend anyone by saying this. Maybe I will. Maybe I don't know if it's offensive or not. But English tea is really not very good. It was like, why are you putting milk and sometimes a sweetener, but like cream in your tea? It's like, really, why? Because the tea, I mean, there's Lipton, right? Which was the tea I grew up with. What is tea? Tea is just tea. There's one kind of tea, it's tea. But then discovered a lot of, especially some of the Japanese teas, sancha and hojicha and things like that. And then Yunnan, golden buds. Anyway, got to be a little bit of a tea snob. Um, and I mean, when you brew a pot of sencha green tea, or Yunnan golden buds or something, you don't put milk in it. It's just, but um, we get anyway. Yeah, I don't know. The tea isn't very good. Maybe it's because it was when it first came to Britain, right? It was coming from China or Indonesia on a ship in these really dense cakes. They would squeeze it down so that all the water was out of it and everything, and then it'd be on a ship for months. It probably wasn't the most delicate loose leaf tea you could find. I'm pretty sure of that. But wow, really not very good. And so that's why they, yeah, I mean, it's still, the, they still have bad tea. English breakfast tea is really easy to overbrew, and then it becomes very bitter. But what sorts of teas have you tried? I mean, I don't know what kind you like. Do you like green teas, light flavored teas, heavy flavored teas? There's so many different kinds. I'm kind of, there's a couple kinds I really like. There's a tea called Silver Needle, which is actually a white tea, and it's very refreshing. Surprisingly, it's even though if it's not an iced tea, it's really good on a hot day. Very light, very kind of a sweet flavor too. It's interesting that way. These are just sort of these are random, just sort of random veiny fungus lines on the yellow. And I don't want too much. I don't want to turn it green, but I want them to be enough and large enough so that they're pretty obvious. Okay. And I guess I should maybe use it here where I didn't paint it yellow. But there's the teas I like are kind of varied. Like there's the Silver Needle. You haven't tried? Yeah, you should try jasmine tea. That's fairly you can. That's fairly easy to come by, I think. Um, so I don't know if I'm supposed to put plugs in for anything, but I will. Can you can you order stuff online? If you can, there's a place called Rishi Tea, Rishi, and they have really a really big variety of teas, and we've been buying from them for. I mean, there's just a lot of different things you can look at, and they're pretty good about describing the flavors. You know, Mm. So if you're not familiar with it, you get some idea of whether it's going to be a sort of a sweet, light tea or maybe a dark bitter tea. And even if you don't buy from there, um, yeah, even if you don't buy from there, because they sell loose leaf tea, not in tea bags. Well, I guess they have some tea bags, but not very many. Um, what you might find it as an interesting way just to explore, to see what kind of teas are available, and maybe find a couple that you would like to try. Anyway, I'd suggest that that you go to their website and just just to see what different kinds of teas there are, and maybe find one or two that you might at some point want to try. We found it kind of fun because there was just, when we were exploring teas for the first time, it was wow. There's so many different kinds. And finally settled in on like maybe four different kinds that we drink pretty regularly. The one kind of tea, have you tried peppermint? I mean, it is what it sounds, and it's fairly easy to come by and relatively inexpensive. I'm pretty sure you can get decent quality peppermint tea in tea bags. Another kind, looking at herbal teas, this is one I like. It's just something I like, is chamomile. Yeah, peppermint tea is good. We go through a lot of it here. Chamomile, I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a little yellow centered flower, like a miniature daisy kind of. And it's there's no caffeine in it, and it's actually used sometimes as a bedtime tea, because it'll help relax and get you to sleep. But it has a really pleasant flavor. Yes, it can help you sleep, and it has a really pleasant flavor. I mean, it is a flower, so it is kind of flowery, and it's really good with a little bit of honey. Not a lot, but just a little bit, so that the honey doesn't overwhelm the flavor of the tea, but it slightly sweetens it. And I know you can get that in tea bags. But that's kind of that's a fun tea to drink. This one here just doesn't look good. I don't know what. Maybe there we go. I just need to, like, instead of having all the stripes go in one direction. That was the problem. Have so little short bits like that. This needs more green on it. This is just taking a long time. Sorry. Just painting little bits. You say, oh, it's so small. How come it's taking so long? Well, it's taking so long because it's small, and because I'm slow and uncoordinated. So, yeah. But I think that's another tea that we have that we kind of like, is the chamomile. And that's another one. It's not very expensive. It's not a rare thing. Some teas there are some teas, like if you go to this Rishi site, I mean, they take their tea way too seriously. Not too seriously. They take their tea very seriously, I should say. And they announce certain harvest times and dates. They have some really expensive stuff that we don't purchase, because it's like, okay, we like good tea, but it's like wine, right? You can spend a lot of money on wine, but unless you have a refined palate, so to speak, It's like, I can't really tell the difference here. The top of that mushroom looks terrible. I don't know why it looks so bad. Okay, whatever non-artistic thing is going on here, it's there. I'm just doing that out of frustration. I'm just saying this looks bad, so there. Take that, mushroom. See if I care how you look. And I don't know if it looks better, but it's not like it was before. Where there are more of these now that I'm painting the little green blops on them than there were when I was painting the yellow. It's like more have sprouted. Just to spite me and take more time, I guess. Doesn't look too bad. Sort of rotating these and seeing spots that look okay and spots that don't. What I can say though is that other than maybe Earl Grey, that's another classic tea. I don't know if you've had that. If not, you should, sometime just get a little bit of that and try it. It's either something that you would really like or something that you'd go, I don't ever want to put this in my mouth again. And it's hard to describe it. Something you have to taste yourself. Jean-Luc Picard's tea. That's go to the replicator. So just go to your replicator. Tea, Earl Grey, hot. And then you can try it. If you don't have a tea replicator, then you'll have to like go to the grocery and pick some up. Keep in mind that when you buy like some of these teas, like mint and chamomile, they'll be okay if you buy them like at a grocery. But if you buy things like Earl Grey, they tend to be, I don't know, I think what happens is they get oxidized. The flavors fade. And so the Earl Grey that you would get in tea bags is not. No, that's true. So one of the Star Trek people used to cook a lot with real ingredients because it was just different. I think Cisco on Deep Space Nine used to. Well, yeah, because his father used to run a restaurant. That was part of the lore, is that his father ran a Cajun restaurant, I believe. Replicator could never quite get it right. I have to say, though, it would be really convenient. Not that cooking is, I don't mind cooking so much, but prep time always takes such a long time. You know, peel 2 cloves of garlic. Okay, well, that took the better part of forever. But what I was saying is that if you get commercial tea in tea bags, that um, they they tend to have lost some of their flavor. I found that especially true with a tea like Earl Grey, which is flavored with an oil, that the oil oxidizes over time, and then the tea, it just hardly has any flavor. Um, we get it when we buy it online as a loose tea in a vacuum sealed bag. It's just a whole different experience. So if you try something like that, just know that what you're getting is kind of a tea that has, I don't know, 2/3 to a half of the flavor of if it was fresher. Yeah, the replicator food is supposed to be identical, right, to real food, but it somehow just isn't. I think Picard used to cook too. I'm not sure. I'm not remembering this, but I do remember that there was cooking going on Star Trek, because the replicator food just wasn't the same. And I'm pretty sure that Cisco from Deep Space Nine was one of those again, because his father used to run a restaurant and he grew up around cooking. But mostly on camera. I'm just every once in a while I have to look up to see if you can kind of see what I'm working on. Sometimes I look up and it's like, oh, I've been talking about what I'm doing here for the last like minutes, sometime, and you haven't been able to see it. One thing that I'd like, but I haven't been able to pull off, is bringing this camera down a little bit. I see. Tea is better. Yes, tea is better for you than coffee. Um, I've been reading different things lately about coffee, and apparently coffee in moderation is healthy. Part of the downside is the caffeine, but there are other things in it. But it depends on how you make it. There are components. This is just what I'm reporting. I don't know if how accurate this is, but apparently there are components in the coffee that are not so good for you. But if you make filter coffee, that is, the coffee runs through one of these paper filter things, that takes the bad chemicals out and leaves the good chemicals in. So I think most coffee machines, drip coffee machines, have some sort of filter in them, and usually people would use these paper filters. I guess the paper filters work better than the metal ones. But what that means is that when I grew up, drip coffee wasn't really a thing because people wanted it in the morning. It was a percolator. And if you don't know what a percolator is, you should look it up. It was really kind of weird. It was the water boiled underneath and then bubbled up and then fell down through the coffee grounds. And it just recycled over and over. So as the coffee brewed, the half brewed coffee would fall down to the bottom and boil and bubble back up. And there was always yeah. No, yeah. I mean, you can fill coffee with 10,000 calories, which is probably not really too much of an exaggeration. I like cream. I like cream in my coffee. Hi, welcome. I'm painting a fungus infected bulette. Sorry. I was trying to actually say words. At a certain age, you just sort of whatever you say is the way it's said. What is your dragonborn idea? Be artistic in my green gooness. Oh, this is good. I should have thought of this earlier. Like swirling the brush around. Okay. That's right. You guys were talking about gem dragons before. Now I'm going to see if I missed any of these yellow bits. Some of the ones I did earlier on just don't look very good. So, on to noon. One thing I did over the weekend, doing things to do something, is I replaced the battery in my wall clock and set it back so that it shows the right time, the correct time. So when I look up at it, I don't have to try to adjust in my head whether I've was supposed to spring forward or fall back. And it's also not off by 10 minutes like the other one was, like it was before I switched the battery. Excuse me. Well, thanks about sharing with Crowley. I appreciate that. And I hope you get to play soon. Maybe we'll see you on Wednesday then. So this is a fungus-infected bulette, and the fungus grows up into it, and then it grows these spiky things. This is all going to get a light green wash on it, so it's going to look. It will look a lot more fungusy once it's washed. I can guarantee that. What I'm doing is checking to see if I missed any significant spots. And then what I'm going to do next is do some touching up on the khaki where I just put spots of yellow paint where I didn't want them because the brush just went there. It was the brush's fault. The brush went there. I didn't put it there. It's using some isopropyl alcohol here to clean the brush. It's just gumming up on the base. Sometimes see a lot of paint coming off there. And sometimes water just isn't enough. Pushing it back and forth, I'm not sure does anything. But I saw an episode of the Bob Ross painting show for some reason over the weekend. And I was just flipping channels, and it was like, oh, Bob Ross is painting. And he cleaned his brushes by swoosh, 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 swoosh. And then he had some sort of tub or something, and he just shook them off. But I don't have that. So anyway, I switched it around. I need to get a replacement for this, though. It's wearing out. The bristles are starting to disappear. And it's okay to have a 3-bristle brush. Sometimes we need it that tiny, but it's pretty tiny. Tap this up before I knock it over and spill it everywhere. The next step is to do touch up of the base coat of the khaki. There's some spots that were missed. Like there's a spot there that didn't get painted at all. There's a couple spots like around here where I just bumped the brush up against it when I was doing the yellow paint. So this is a matter of rotating the model and inspecting it and then putting little dots of this khaki paint on it where it's got the wrong color on it. Here, there's a spot that never got painted. So now it's got paint on it. There's other spots like here. Yellow paint got on it. I bumped it with the brush. That looks okay. I know there's multiple spots. There's one there, right at the back end of the head carapace there. It needs to be unspotted. There's one. Here, the yellow just came down just a little bit too far. I'll cover that up. spot here. Oh, and I know there were more. That's actually a. These are actually really, truly protuberances. Hoping I find them all. After this is going to dry, and then I'm going to going to thinking I was thinking of putting some of the wash on, but I think what I'm going to do next, there's a controversy. Controversy is these open sores, which I almost forgot about. I know there's another yellow spot somewhere. No, I'm not seeing where it was. Where I bumped the paint. That's supposed to be there, and that's supposed to be there. So these open sores, like this one here, either red with black ooze coming out of it, or black with red ooze coming out of it. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to just do some little touches up here. Wasn't any paint. There's less touching up than I thought there would be. I'm not sure why. Just not seeing it. I bet when I'm trying to do the finishing bits on it, I'm going to see them, and then it'll be too late. No, I haven't done a flip, and I should be able to in just a bit. There's a couple of little things I want to do first. If I don't do them now, I'm going to forget. Need to. I'm going to do the nostrils later. I'm going to give this a bright red eye. Maybe I'm going to use this color. I should have done this before I did the khaki touch up, because this could go badly. Okay, worked out right. I'm going to do a flip. I only do a flip if somebody asks for it, and usually who will ask. Sometimes I'll follow. Nobody else so far has been asking for flips, so do that. Sort of clean. I've got stuff here. I'm going to do a flip with a little thing. Just do a little bitty flip thing. It's got a spot on one side and not spot on the other side. Not spot. On edge. That's happened every once in a while. It goes on the edge. One of each. 2 knots. 2 of each. 3 knots. I do 6 flips. 4 knots. So there's 4 knot spots and 2 spots. Knot spot wins. I'm going to do some testing to see whether these open sores should be red with black or black with red. To use a sort of glossy color. Do this twice. You know, what I'd like to do is, well, I can't. So I'm going to paint a red spot from which I will have black ooze. Okay. And a black spot from which I'll have red ooze, but I can't paint the black on the red and the red on the black until they've dried. So that's going to have to wait. I'm looking at the bulette, and what I'd really like to do is taking a little bit of a risk, is I'd like to get the washing on it done, the brown wash on the carapace and the green wash on everything else. And then I guess paint the open wounds after that. I'm a little hesitant to do that because if I make a mess of the open wound, here. And I've got like 10 times more black paint than I need here. It's just way too much. It's never going to dry. Steak. Okay, let's see if I can get this clean. And then I'm going to coat the wound in like epoxy, just to make it glossy looking. I'm going to get impatient here. You dry this quickly. At least dry it quickly enough so that I can do this. I'm going to take a quick break. That's not very opaque, is it? Take a quick break and show this to those among us who are artistic and get a report, whether it will be black with red ooze or red with black ooze. that, I think I'm really surprised. If I were to just do this without, testing it or asking anyone's opinion, I would have said, of course, it's supposed to be an open sore. It's going to be red because it's just like the flesh showing, right? And then black stuff would ooze out of it. But the red on the black actually looks better. Sometimes it's a good idea to test things out before applying them. I've been doing that more and more lately. Just testing, like for the carapace. I tested 5 different base colors and 5 different washes on each one and decided on that one. Kind of like this instead, but that's what it's going to be. So of the 25 different combinations, really only like 3 of them looked any good. And sometimes it's surprising, and it's not the one that you would expect. Okay. I'm going to take it'll be a short break, maybe 10 minutes, because I have to show these to members of Dice and Dungeons and see which one they like better, this or that. And then I have to run up and ask their opinion and come back down. In the meantime, I'm going to put it on the I'll be right back screen, but it will be less than 10 minutes. But I need to check on this before I move forward. I'm always surprised when things work. In this particular case, it's the thing that worked was the coming back from break. Of course, it works better when I push the right button. There was it was Wednesday. The stream that I survived is there's the screen that says, stream will be starting soon. And then all I have to do is push the button that says, wait 30 seconds. Because there's an intro thing. Sorry, my eyes are itchy from allergies. And I hit the end stream button instead, just as it was time to start. So it didn't start because I ended it. And I had to reboot everything from the very beginning. At least I had enough sense to figure out what to do, but it took like 10 minutes to get it going again. That kind of thing happens. Well, the decision was to go with a black opening. Okay, these openings in the carapace and the flesh and things, and then a red ooze coming out of it. The red is nice and glossy. The black has some gloss to it. That makes another decision easier. Is I'm going to paint the insides of the holes black now before I do the washing, so that I have an opportunity to do the touching up. And as you can see, the oozing part is from the center and then kind of oozing out onto the model underneath it. It's like dripping out kind of. That goes on after the black is dry. And that doesn't have an edge that is in contact with another color other than the wound itself. And so I'm going to paint the black wound openings now. And then if I need to, I can do some touching up with the other base colors. So that's going to actually work out okay. And I'll give this a good stir. This particular black is slightly glossy and a little more viscous than the other black. I've got like 3 black colors. The others are very flat and they're smoother in terms of coverage. But we want the wounds to be glossy, oozy. And so I'm going to do that, is use the slightly glossy one. The other thing, this one came from, I have to try this brush sometime. Pretty good. This one has a nice kind of a fine point and it holds a lot of paint, but I'm not sure. I haven't used this brush before. I'm going to give it a try, especially back here where the wound, there's a mushroom going up out of it. That one's going to be hard to paint. So I'm going to use this because it's got a long, kind of a long bristle thing on it. A long bristle thing. That's a highly technical term that should only be used by extremely experienced painters. Long bristle thing. I'm going to use my long bristle thing and put some black paint, hopefully without getting it all over everything else. See how that works, right? And I really need to put these things away. I've got like more than a dozen paint colors out, and I don't need them out. They're just in the way. Okay, here I go. The long bristle thing here. Paint up to, but not over the edge here. This is the hard part, getting it in here. So I'm hoping the long pointy bristles will come into their own there. I should probably be using my head magnifier for this, but I'm not. After this dries, I'm going, I almost broke one off. Yeah, this is getting to there's very likely to be an oops part of the stream. I'm usually pretty good for about 2 hours, and then my hand coordination and my focus starts to fade. So the last half, when I used to go from 10 until 2, I'd take a break, and the break would always go way too long. Say, I'll be back in a half hour, and then it would be 45 minutes later. And then after break, I really kind of was unfocused, and I'd be slopping stuff around and spilling things and actually getting a little bit achy from sitting on this stool. And so I would, it wasn't always very productive. I'd come back and there was an hour and a little bit more of the stream left, and I frequently would get hardly anything done, or I'd make a mistake and have to redo things. So I started going, okay, what if I just went from 10 until 1? One day it happened by accident. Okay, I'll just say that I was, just moving along, and there was one more thing, one more thing, one more thing. And so instead of stopping at about noon to take a break, I just kept going until about 1, and I got a lot more done that day without taking a break and ending early than if I'd taken a break and came back. So I made it based on that accidental event, just the unintended but enlightening event. I've now been going from 10 until 1, and usually there's no break. The only times I've taken a break since I've started doing it this way is when I needed to get some advice about painting, what colors to paint. Like today when I wanted to see if I needed to be, there's an oops. I got a little, the black went too far. There. So I have to touch it up. This is why I'm glad I'm doing this, so there's an opportunity to do touching up before the washing. If I'd been doing, anyway, it's just working out okay. So I'll be able to, if I remember, or maybe not, maybe I'll just increase. When I rotated it, it looks different when I rotate it. I'll just paint up to that. This is a pretty good brush. It holds a fair amount of paint. It's got a hair, but that time that definitely was a mistake. That was an oops right there. And what happened is I was not paying attention. I was saying, "Oh, this is a good brush. It's going right," and then I bopped the brush. That's the most common oops I make, is on the way to or from the painting surface, is I bump the brush like I did there. But I'm going to be able to come back with the khaki paint because I haven't done any washing with it yet. I'll be able to come back with the khaki paint and correct that. Need to be a little more careful here. Since I put all those, well, I can still fix it, with the sort of beigeish color paint. Like if I mess this up, I can paint it. I haven't washed it yet, which is really hard to. It's hard to fix things once that's on, because then there's all these multiple layers. But in this case, if it does mess up, I can paint the beige, and if I overpaint some of the red, I can repaint the red on it. I didn't oops that, so there, that's good. I need to come out a little further here. I have to remember this. This is a good brush. Here. Need to make sure I find them all. I was saying that because of that one time when I missed my break and it went okay. I've been doing from 10 until 1. And what I'm doing then is that I'm skipping the part late in the stream when I really can't do much else other than try to clean up, because sometimes I'll get a hand cramp. That'll happen. Sometimes it gets it it gets chillier. I know it doesn't. The temperature stays the same, but I get chilled down here in the basement workshop. With that, just a couple up here. So stopping at 1 has just turned out to be pretty good, and because I don't take a break, I'm still getting almost as much constructive time in as if I took a break that went on too long anyway. But one of these days, probably should fix the the whatever the media thing is that says what the schedule is. Should probably fix that sometime to reflect the new actual times for relaxing painting with dice and dungeons. 12, not quite 12:30. I'm not sure I'm going to finish this today, but I'm going to come. It'll be pretty close. Part of it just depends on paint drying. What is going to happen is that I'm going to put the green wash on next on the bottom and the spikes. That has to dry. And the washes, because there's so much solvent in them, they actually tend to dry kind of slowly. So that might be as far as I get today. And then on Wednesday, I'll do the brown wash on the carapace. That, and paint the red ooze coming out of the open wounds here. Dry, I'm going to get some epoxy. Make it glossy. We'll see how it looks after, without the epoxy before putting the epoxy on, but because it might look okay. And if it looks okay, then I won't attempt to glisten it that way. If it doesn't, then I will. I'm going to predict that, that the green wash isn't going to be dry enough for me I have to hold it by hand like this, okay, because it's too big to put on a holder. I'm going to predict that the green wash isn't going to dry quickly enough to finish this today. This is a really nice detailed brush. This is a big open sore here. I've got a couple of little spots where the black went too far. I have to touch those up with the khaki color. That won't delay the application of the green wash because it's not going on the khakis. So as long as I don't stick my finger in the tiny little spots, and hopefully I'll be able to not stick my finger in the tiny spots. Be okay to do that and then do the wash. And I'm going to wash the spiky things first because as you can see, I'm kind of holding it and touching the bottom. And if that's all covered with green wash, that will just make a mess. So I can do the spiky things first and then more carefully hold it just on the unpainted base here and wash the beige with the red veining. This is printed. There's a lot of texture in these open sores. I need to make sure I didn't miss any. I mean, they're kind of obvious, but sometimes kind of obvious is an invitation to not see it. That's where I need to touch up there. Missed this. Looks like I got them. And there's a little bit of touching up, but not very much. And the black is keeping slightly gloss. It's like I said, there's I have several different blacks, and I wanted to pick the glossiest one because eventually this is supposed to be shiny. They're supposed to be glistening moons. Okay, it's good. I'll put the little cover thing back on it again. Nice. It's a nice way to mess up a brush. This is supposed to protect the bristles, but it doesn't. I get the bristles in it. There. The khaki color. Oh, this is a mess. There's so many different paints out here that shouldn't be out here that I'm just knocking them over. Oh, thank you. What I really need to do is put these paints away. So I should just stop chatting and painting. I should stop chatting and painting, and I should be putting paints away off camera because that's where they are. That's where they're stored, is off camera. Fixing that spot. So up here, up and Yeah, that'll be okay. There was another one somewhere. What I did was I got some of the khaki black. It's almost invisible, but almost invisible is not the same as being invisible. It's like being almost dead is not the same as being all the way dead. We learned that from Princess Bride. Almost slipped right out of my hand. That would have not been good. If that had fallen there, it would have bounced here and onto the floor. I would say probably 2/3 of the little spiky things would have broken off. Oh, that would have been an oops of disastrous proportion. Close to being um, a massive oops. Seeing here as I rotated this is that this didn't finish correctly here. Yeah, this brush is not working as well as the other one. They look pretty good. For washing, I want a brush that kind of covers a lot of. Geez, I just bumped into it again. I'm going to use this for the spiky bits. Okay, I want to be able to spread it around quickly. And I'm going to use this for the underside because it's a larger area. And I'm going to try not to get too much of the green wash onto try not to get it onto the khaki as much as I can. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing that last is that if I need to touch up the khaki with over the wash because it's splashed around, I can still do that. I'm using a dark green wash, which I know I've pulled out here. I'm going to use a fresh bottle because the other one I have, which I'm still going to use for other things, it's an older one and it's got too much pigment in it. It just makes it hard to control. It makes it hard to control the level of washing this, and I don't want to put it on too heavily. Like this one came out okay, but I did another one with the heavily pigmented wash, and it came out just too dark. It just didn't look good. Just to be thoroughly stirred. Oh, hi, Ole. Thanks for popping in. I didn't look up. Enjoy dinner, and I appreciate you dropping in. Thanks. This is coming along. I'm going to actually not finish it today. I'll finish it on Wednesday, and then on Friday I'll be going back to the Savoya and working on the instrument panels. That will be exciting. I'm putting a green wash on the spikes and the underside, and this will change the appearance pretty significantly. I'm thinking, not hugely dramatically, but anyway, they won't look so brightly yellow. Some brown and stuff in it, so it's going to tone it down. You can see here it's kind of an olive color, so it's going to tone down the yellow, but hopefully let the variation, the green still show through. Ooze down to the base a little bit there. Yeah, it's good. I was rotating it and see that I completely missed some spots. Okay, you can see where I washed it versus not, how much darker it is. And it's a little streakier, a little more fungusy, a little more ominous. Really, I never really used these much, but like Zoya Ansul, our changeling druid, who is in real life a real life artist, has given me some suggestions and sort of like lessons. Usually makes suggestions like, yeah, that's a really good suggestion for someone who is skilled and knows what they're doing, but I don't have the technique. And it's, these things actually they take practice, you think, well, just putting paint on stuff, but it's not. It's practicing the different techniques and until we become kind of good at it. And I'm kind of not really, but I'm getting better. So something like this, I'm getting better at, learning how much to get on the brush and where to put it and how to pool it up. Make it, where do I want it to pool and get darker? Where do I want it to stay lighter? I don't want it to be light around the base. And there's this tendency for it to not be there. So I'll go back later and make sure that that there aren't any bright spots right around the base of these little spiky things. And also, rotate this thing in many different directions because it's like, oh, yeah, I mean, that's fine, except I missed the whole left side of it kind of thing. I let this pool up in the center of that thing. I got the new jar out, though. If this had been the really heavily pigmented one, I would have been having trouble controlling where it was dark and where it was. I mean, there'd be spots that are just way too dark because there'd be too much pigment. So, if you've been painting, you've got your jar of old paint, and sometimes that's a real useful thing because you want it to be slightly differently pigmented than if the paint was fresh. Sometimes it flows differently, and it's either something you want because it makes it easier to control, and sometimes it just is the opposite of what you want because it's too viscous and it doesn't apply. I don't know. So sometimes we have like old paint and new paint, and why are you keeping that old paint? It's like, well, I spent $4 for this bottle of paint. And I don't want to waste the last 20% of it in the jar. That frequently turns out to be a mistake. Splattered it there. I should come back and touch that up. I don't know what that will look like. The brown wash might take care of that, or it might just show through and say, why is there a spot there? And it doesn't look like a natural spot. It looks like the spot that would happen because you splotted a piece of some paint there instead of putting it where it was supposed to be. Probably, yeah, I'm just getting little blotches. Oh, that was bad. That was I wasn't paying attention, and I put the brush in the black paint instead of the wash. And that really would not have been good. I would have had black paint on stuff. That would have been in the significant oops category there. Been more than a minor oops. The brush and it was wet, and so the water was diluting the wash in a not helpful way. I don't know if you remember what it looked like before, but I mean, it was really, well, you can see the mushroom is still bright yellow. You can see sort of a before there, and you can see that it definitely looks better. You can also see that I've got little splotches of this green wash, and I want to touch those up with the khaki. It probably won't make a difference, but probably is too uncertain in terms of will end up looking. Bubble. I probably should have left the bubble on it. It would have looked okay. Yeah. If I can intentionally put bubbles on it. And intentionally put spots on this that are darker. The top of it looks kind of mottled. This has ridges in it, but the wash isn't really going into it like that. Now I'm just looking for bright spots, especially near the base of these things, like that. Okay, if there's bright spots, I think on the spiky things, but I don't want it right down at the bottom. The edges like that. Don't need that. Yeah, I think that's okay. That came out okay. I'm going to wash this brush. I'm not going to paint the khaki on it yet. That's not dry. Reminding myself to not do that. Now I need to carefully hold it only by the base, the unpainted part here, while I wash the whole bottom part. The brownish with the red stripes. That's what's next. I use the paper towel to close those. Those and the metallics both have a tendency to splatter. Okay, so this whole bottom thing here needs to be green washed. I'm using this big brush and just, these are all vertical surfaces. It's going to be really hard to get it to puddle anywhere, but I'm going to make sure I cover all the surfaces, because if there's something that's not covered, it's going to be very obvious. And it's okay. I want it a little splotchy, not exceptionally splotchy, but I'm going to just paint right over the toenails. It's just hard to not do that. They're going to get washed with the brown wash like the rest of the carapace, but I think it's okay to have multiple coats of goo on them. Why not? I mean, they're right there at the bottom, right in the goo. Getting any on there. You can see how that changed it pretty dramatically. Now it's, with the green on it, it looks way more infected than before. Compare and contrast that side versus this side. And it's not too terribly dark. I think it's okay. This side, and then what I'll do next is just rotate it in multiple directions, trying to make sure that I haven't missed any spots. This pretty quickly. It's trying more quickly than I remembered. And then, streakiness is one thing, but just big blobs are another thing that I don't want to have. Is big blobs of gook in a place that doesn't make sense to be gooky. Get a little splotchier, just Bob Ross said, just get this all over the place. He didn't say it like that. I was watching one episode of it, and he did an awful lot of this. And when he did that, things look pretty cool. When I do this, it just looks bloppy. But it is supposed to be mossy, kind of, right? But this looks a lot better with the green wash on it. It looks like it's really infected, and it's closer to this color, but this is going to turn a darker brown, so that the contrast will be pretty obvious. And hope this thing didn't come out too dark. It should be okay, I said optimistically. You can still see the veining on it. That looks, and you can tell it's red. I think it looks okay. I mean, it doesn't look okay without the wash on the carapace, but that will come along next. That will be the thing that's done on Wednesday, is washing the carapace and the toenails. This brush needs a way more thorough cleaning than I'm getting here. Place to touch it. So on Wednesday, I'll be washing the carapace, and I'll be using a smoky ink. So you get an idea. It's going to go from that color to this color. So just like the beige looks really different with the green wash on it, the carapace is going to look really different with the brown wash on it. Thinks that works. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have watched that one episode. His brushes got clean just by going, and then they got clean, but mine aren't. Definitely not doing what his did. Bad now. Yeah, the timing on this is working out okay. I've got tiny little bits of carapace. See, there's just blotches of the green wash on there that I don't want there, because I don't know how that's going to look under the brown wash. I mean, it might look like a good thing, and I'm making a mistake getting rid of it. On the other hand, it might look just yucky, in which case I would wish I had gotten rid of it. I'm going to go with if I wish I had gotten rid of it, it would be too late to do anything about it. If it's, oh, that looks good, and I missed the opportunity, then I could just say, well, it could have been better, but it's not. What those were like when I was putting on the green wash on the spikes. There's like little spots that got splashed on, little drips. So I'm just covering them over, just so that I don't end up regretting it later. There's a spot here that just really needs to be dark. And it's just not. It's just not. Now it is. And that was a good thing. Okay. Well, I got the major ones. All right. So this is coming along. I got the yellow painted today. I got the green modeling, on it. I got the green wash on it. I painted the oozing sores a glossy black so that they look pretty good. And I got the green wash on the thing, and that made it look better. It's going to look better with the brown wash on the carapace. It's going to change the look of it almost really dramatically. Make it brown instead of khaki. It'll look much darker. Yeah, I'll do that, and then at some point I'll have to paint the base. I'll have to decide what to do with that. Not quite sure. So I got things done today, and on Wednesday, like I said, I'll be doing the brown wash on the carapace. Probably little black dots on the nostrils. Why not? And then red oozing out of the open sores. And then once that's painted in, we'll make a decision whether it's glossy enough as it is, or whether I need to, put some sort of gloss coat on it. And then there it will be. Yeah. Thanks for watching. I'll be back on Wednesday around about 10 o'clock. If who shows up or somebody else asks, I'll do a flip. Something to look forward to, Ana. That's a Milwaukee word. Ana. Isn't it so, Ana? But yeah, then it will look like a very much infested, open sore, oozing bulette that we'll probably regret having because we're going to run into it in our D&D campaign. Yeah, thanks to all of you who joined in, especially first-time chats and followers. Thank you. I hope to see you then on just seeing spots. That just needs to be darker. Hope to see you on Wednesday when I will be continuing to work on this bulette and getting it really close to being finished at that time. And invite everybody to please check out our Dungeons and Dragons show. It streams with live chat at 2 o'clock on Twitch on Sundays, but you can catch all of the old episodes on YouTube. Find out about our backstories and some of the in-jokes and things like that, that recurring jokes and themes that come up. And you can also listen to them as a podcast, as with this, where you can watch these on YouTube or listen to them. I don't know if they go on a podcast. I'm thinking not, but you can catch them on YouTube. So that was achy back. Got an achy back there. I'll be back on Wednesday at about 10, finishing up the bulette. Not too much to do, but it'll take time because things I do always take time. I'm putting a brown wash on all of this olive drab kind of area, and then painting red oozingness coming out of these open sores. Poor, sad bulette. Okay, yeah, I'm fading away. Before I fade away into incoherence, I'm going to say thanks, everybody. Please watch our show. Become a follower, become a YouTube subscriber, and if you want, go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons, and you can become a patron and get all sorts of cool stuff. So I'll see you on Wednesday. Good. Now I'm starting to bump things. Definitely is time to push the end stream button. See you then.